basically just sort of said to myself last weekend, let's just trade in the top half of the chart. So I'm basically, I'm paying the top price of that stock. There's never been paid more, in the history of that stock. Once you sort of get your head around that, there's a calmness on sort of, for that process as well. RAM was sort of one that we mentioned previously, a nice VCP, bit small for me personally, but that's the ideal looking chart. Strong move, goes up over 100%. I trade a little bit into heat. I've moved the rest to break even. And I've sort of almost got a free trade on here now.
What are the strongest momentum stocks on ASX right now? Which companies are getting loaded up to be the next market leaders? The 30/30 list answers both of those questions each week. And we've got Gary Glover explaining the charts, the setups, and trading insights to learn. Our members get this full list at the same time Gary does, after lunch on Thursdays. Plus, they get the opportunity to ask questions to be discussed here. So join the channel, get the whole list at the same access as our members and Gary. And we'll go over to the markets and charts now. Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Yeah, no, good, Chris.
So this market, it's still reporting season at the moment on the ASX. There's a fair bit that has happened, toned down a bit of volatility that we had the week before. What sort of lessons are you pulling from the market reporting season, volatility, momentum, sectors, themes, and trading opportunities? Is there anything that's sort of coming at you from the markets?
I don't think me personally, that's probably a bit of a resolution there last week was to, I basically just sort of said to myself last weekend, let's just trade in the top half of the chart. So I'm invariably doing, if you're looking at the leaders and VCPs, on some stuff there, cup and handles, you are trading in the top half of the chart. But every now and again, human nature will get drawn down to maybe the bottom end and trying to find a little VCP down under the 50, or we might even get drawn to sort of something maybe outside of our wheelhouse there. So I still occasionally have the tendency to do something I shouldn't be doing. Even with, even sort of limiting the risk stuff there as well. But, I think I just had a resolution there last weekend just to sort of stay in the top half. So rather than, we stay in those leadership names there, even just, changing some of the rules, even some of the trade patterns I look at, maybe just use those in the top half rather than bottom half. So that was sort of one thing personally that, and as a result of that, I've tweaked a few of my rules, on that basis. And I did actually, one of the viewers there, actually Justin, sent me a link to a Matt Caruso video, which was sort of talking about just like a different sort of fault. I look at false breaks as well. It just kind of made me think a little bit differently about what false breaks are. Sort of something I identified, and for me it's only a tweak of one day, but it was just an interesting sort of setup there, which if this is what Matt Caruso calls a sort of 3 MA trade, it's a trade that I already do, but it's like a day later for me. And also instead of sort of bottom dwelling, I'm top dwelling, which is probably better. And these trades originated, I think, Livermore, Larry Connor, Gil Morales, some of the greats are doing this trade. So I was like, hold on. So it's just a little tweak there, but it's interesting, I'm 53 and I'm still, the old dog can learn a few tricks that, every now and again. And all it's done is just sort of, it's kind of your knowledge that you've sort of grown there, and then maybe look your trading records as well. It's just sort of said, okay, that's a good setup there, but it's probably going to be high probability if it's in the top half rather than the bottom half. And that was sort of, that kind of resolution was just sort of like, let's just stick in the top half. It's, if I'm looking at a chart every day, I look at hundreds of charts. I'm literally scanning through lists all the time. I've got my different watch lists there, but let's just look in the top half. Let's avoid looking in the bottom half. And it sounds like a sort of simple, weird principle, but we're just looking in the top half. We're just looking at stronger names there, and we know that we're following this list for, doing these reviews every week here for the last 3 years. We know these leaders, they just stay there, keep going up, and then new highs rolling through there. And the last few weeks, I've been buying stocks Like I'm buying stuff at the highs. So I've bought the stock at a level where no one's paid higher than me. You know what I mean? So
Normally not a good thing. You raise
so that's, yeah, so
it's a hard thing to do.
the weird principle to get your head around. But so I'm basically, I'm paying the top price for that stock. There's never been paid more in the history of that stock. So that doesn't sound like a great thing to be doing, but we know that once the sort of stock goes through a consolidation and breaks out, oftentimes they're going through here. So there's a stock that's moved quite large for me, following moving that principle the last couple of weeks, and a few others that have sort of tightened up and then broken out again. So pretty high in the range and pretty close to the top end there. But there's always people, once you sort of get your head around that, there's a calmness on sort of for that process as well. And then it's nice when you just keep seeing them go higher and higher and higher. And it's, there's plenty of sort of charts out there where the stock just rolls higher every day. It's so it does sort of tend to sort of take out the I think if you get your head around that principle, it can really sort of change your sort of trading here anyway. So, but I noticed this one here was number 2 on the list there in terms of our momentum versus HCL. So it is in that sort of defense space, and we have seen a lot of stocks in that, obviously the drone shield and the EOS and a few others in there. So it has been a fairly robust sector. Bit of a smaller name here. It's just definitely had a bit of a pop here and going through a consolidation there. So it's probably one to keep an eye on just because that sector has been robust. Nothing's sort of set up there. You just probably want to see this, maybe tighten up here and, just wait for some sort of consolidation or a tightening pattern there or something. RAM was sort of one that we mentioned previously, a nice VCP, bit small for me personally, but that's the ideal looking chart. Strong move, goes up over 100%, goes through a consolidation, VCP tightens up, and we break out on volume. So, I mean, if we just want a chart to replicate, this is the one we want to be replicating. But obviously, I preferably, me personally, I'd like to sort of see it above 30 cents, just a slightly bigger market cap as well. So, but perfect setup here, really strong wave, really strong volume, pull back here. Volume dried up throughout the whole period. Very, very little volume throughout here. Even in the last phase here, the whole thing tightened up and then bang, it's broken up here. So,
well, let's just use that one because you talked about trading in the top right, the ideal chart, looking at VCPs in the top half. So if we just look at this one for a second, from October through February, it's run hard. It's run from 1 cent to 3.5 cents. Huge percentage return in a short amount of time. That's a massive run up. Just putting aside for a second the share price that it doesn't meet your criteria to actually trade. But that's a leading company looking at it. There's day after day. If you've been buying that company, you're paying the highest price that people haven't paid before. I'm not sure what's on the left-hand side of the chart, not on the screen.
Yeah.
It's 52-week high, day after day, week after week, and month after month. Then the sector may still be in the top third of the market, but it goes through a consolidation period, March, April, May, June 24. This is where the VCP is, right? And you're talking about, okay, it's still on your watch list. It has been a leader. It's going through a consolidation period. The volumes are ticking the right boxes.
Yeah.
Is this what you're talking about where, okay, I'm looking at a VCP in the top half of the chart as opposed to the bottom half? Is that what is happening with that VCP there?
Yeah, exactly. So you've got to, get a strong run, get a consolidation, then you get a breakout. You're going with the momentum there. So you're buying in the top, buying in the top half here. Just a strong run, just textbook. So, I mean, I've sort of been building my library of VCPs, up on handles, 0, 1, 2, 3, just sort of, just keep putting them through there. And actually quite helped me with a trade this week, actually. LTP was one that has had a massive move there, basically sort of rallied up to 20 cents here, up into $1, and then it's gone through a bit of a sideways consolidation there. So if I look at this, I think looking at this last week here, this was a pretty good setup here. Actually, I was looking at this very point there. I thought this has had a strong move, pretty good volume in there, and then it's gone through a bit of a sideways consolidation there. Volume's pretty light there, no real sort of selling on any of these sort of declines there at all. And then, had a look at what the company did. Pretty interesting sort of set to what's happening there. And then I actually rang a few mates who might know about this, and because I couldn't understand, this is like a repurposed drug, but it's actually it's being repurposed for the same use. And so this is basically nasal spray Viagra. Is probably the simplest way to put it. So since Viagra, there's been about 3 or 4 other blockbuster drugs there to help guys and stuff there. And they've all had billion-dollar market caps. So basically there's obviously a massive market, for older guys who need a help. But they've only been taking them, all the other sort of drugs since Viagra are all tablet form only. For some reason, LTP are basically delivering in a nasal spray. So since Viagra, some of these other, I think Viagra takes about an hour. It's been 3 other sort of drugs that come out post Viagra, which has sort of shortened the time span. So they've sort of maybe down to half an hour, but then the nasal spray delivers quick again. So it's just interesting. I did a bit of homework on this one. I thought, well, this one, I actually thought this might fade back into the 70s. And then maybe I could start to build a little bit of a position, and then away we go. But not to be. What actually happened here was the stock closed. They actually did a B-wave break here, which I didn't see. I actually missed it. So if I'd seen that, I would have bought that, because that's sort of closing above our B-wave break. And actually, I think it even closed above our high as well.
So high as close or open out of any.
Yeah. So that would have been a good set. That's basically it's strong move, consolidation there, and then once we've sort of broken above a little B-wave, that's a trigger for me. I just didn't see it, so I didn't see it till the next day, and unfortunately, the next day we had some news out, and the stock jumped quite a lot. So I really like this. I've done a lot of homework on this. I was thinking to myself, I was going to start putting position at a 70. Once it starts moving up, I'll add to it, and then once it breaks out, then I'll a bit heavier. But I had to redefine my trading there pretty quickly. So I just took a small position here, sort of, I think on the open here or something. Had to sort of limit my risk as well, take a much smaller trade, because I got to keep my risk parameters wide there. But I did notice it ran up a little bit, had a few little breathers intraday, and did sort of add one little position to that. But I just couldn't take too big a position there because the risk parameters. Because if this thing could fade all the way back here, fill the gap, and then run again. That's always a possibility. So, but it's just pretty interesting. So what I found, Chris, was I actually went and, because I've now got a VCP library, we've got like 30 different VCPs, maybe 40. I went through and actually tried to find a similar sort of setup, and then, so I think I sort of found, might have been FND, which has had a pretty cracking run, had a big move, big sideways consolidation, and cracked out again. And then it kept having little pullbacks, like it'll run, have like a little 3-way pullback, run, 3-way pullback. It was probably one of the closest ones. I thought, okay, don't get panicked out here by the first little because this looks like a bit of a reversal here on the second day, the red candle. It's like, you don't want to get shaken out here early, so you want to sort of stay with this. So it's what will happen. What normally happens is they sort of run up, then they'll have a little bit of a 3-way congestion, and then again 3-way congestion. So if it is going to keep going, that's what all the other VCPs were doing. So by checking my library and the VCPs, I was like, it really helped with how I traded this one, even though I've got the worst case scenario here. I'd planned this trade. I thought, it comes back in mid-70s, I'll start building a small position. Once it starts moving up, I'll add to it. Once it breaks up, go full position, and let it go. But it jumped out of the gates. Had to, take a much smaller trade there, but still ended up being so far it's ended up being a really nice trade. It's obviously, nice winning there. But I've now managed to sort of get my trade is a little bit into heat. I've moved the rest to break even. and I've sort of almost got a free trade on here now. So now just got to, hopefully this can be a Spartan and keep running. But I don't know if it's going to do that or not. But at least I've got nothing I've lost nothing here. Probably banked a little bit of profit, and then kind of way I go. But I think if you sort of get that sort of same sort of style there and the same patterns there, you just got to sort of follow your sort of, that's my strategy is to sort of look for these VCPs, try and build a position, add to them on the break, and then get, then trade into a little bit of heat, and then move to sort of the rest of break even and try and let it run, and then trail the 20. So the 20 is a long way back here. So it looks a long way back here now. So you think, oh, I might stop so far way back, but it'll have a breather, a congestion, it'll start catching up, So as long as the holding doesn't sort of collapse there, which I don't think it will, but yeah. But it's it was just interesting there. So I think it's having seen, 'cause we're looking for a template. We are looking for that big rally, breather, and then the breakthrough again. So that's the one thing that's what I'm looking for personally. And that's kind of one of my 3 setups that I look at. So it's I was looking at on your list there because I didn't know that APX that had a nice little setup there as well. So the stock's had it's got a lot of losers, this stock here, because if you look at the long-term chart here, it's had a pretty nasty year, but big volume down here. So it's sort of, a bit of activity. It is in that AI space there. It just hasn't gone so well there since they lost the Google contract, but the recent update here on this day here was a bit of a game changer trade there. So actually, they're doing a bit of business with a lot of Chinese firms. Even though they lost Google, they picked up some new business there. So it's actually quite good for them. So it's had a bit of a jump here. So even though it's got a lot of losers to get through, so it's going to be fighting the tape. Still, it is a sector which can get a little bit of, a little bit of light as well, a little bit of, so there was a bit of a change of character. They had 3 big days up, bit of a breather. Did see this come up a couple of days and then tighten up in here. And then I thought actually this looked pretty good here on this day before it dipped back under the 10. But and then it just fired and it's right back there. So it was a bit of a tricky one there. So the only way to trade these, I think, is that, because on the daily there's not too much, there's only 3 days and 2 days, there's not a lot of, that's where I sort of think maybe going into your
half hourly.
Yeah, half hourly sort of can work there, because then it's sort of like you're seeing this pull back here. On this last day here, it looked like it tipped over to me. That was sort of, this last day was not what I wanted to see. But then the following day just cut straight through there. So as soon as you break a high here, like, this is like a VCP, it's tightening up. As soon as you break, a little swing high in here. So, you might have sort of given you a little bit of room, maybe somewhere around 80, 81 cents there. But even adding there would have been nice. You're already, 81 here, it's already 105 here. So you can sort of go in there. I just wouldn't go too much lower than that. But this looked quite good there, just because that was the game changer trade there for that stock here. And pull back light volume, ran again, tightened up here, looked really good. I thought, this is just going to sit on top of the high here. Well, then it did the old, little shake out there. So, market's always going to try and shake us out, shake the weak hands, try and, so that day there didn't look particularly good to me. That's probably the only day that I thought would look negative, but then bang, the next day it's just behind. But you could have drilled in there, maybe sort of set, because the thing about that is, as soon as you break above that level, then you're adding to it. If it goes down, you're never adding to it. So you can kind of program that trade in there for you, sort of get a bit clever as well. But I thought that was pretty interesting. That's still looking pretty good there. You are getting sort of this declining volume here on the way up there, but that's all right. To me, this looks like it's sort of destined for that high here. What you're almost hoping for is it goes up to 116.5 there, somewhere around there, has a bit of a breather there. Maybe we get a nice little handle in here or something, and then nice, get a little 3-wave handle, come back in here, dry up, and away we go. That's definitely worth watching here. It's interesting setup there. BMT was Beamtree there. It's a little VCP in there, a little small for me, but didn't look too bad. There was some reasonable volume that sort of came out of this little VCP. Once it sort of broke above 24, it has sort of gone on with it there, but a bit small. SIX, I guess, again, another small one there. Pretty strong sort of move here. Bit of a congestion, a bit of a tighten up, a little bit of a VCP, and then a bit of a pop, but just a little smaller. I didn't really know that stock very, very well, but just one to keep an eye on. SKS has obviously been a pretty strong stock in that sort of data center area there, Chris. Well, had a pretty strong move here. Stayed pretty tight here so far. There was a tiny bit of selling here, maybe first day here, but considering how strong this has been, there's some decent lines of stock through here. We saw maybe one or two lines here up the last high, but then it just dried up, just didn't follow through here, and then we started to punch through and break through. So got a nice little VCP in here, and then we broke out again. But this is staying tight here. This is, as much as this is probably going a bit, I thought this might have been slightly larger in this correction here, but probably not by much. So what, 83 to 63 is it's like 20 cents there. So this is 172 to 1 point, so 32 cents. So it's a little bit larger. So I prefer to see them uniform, but hardly sort of large and in the context of the move. And it's staying, we're staying in the top, we're not in the top quartile, we're probably in the top 15, 20% here. So it hasn't shown too much weakness here yet. So it still leaves it in a pretty strong position here. So, there's nothing wrong with this. We've seen this sort of before there. I mean, if we go back and look at that Spartan resources there, the one thing that you continually kept seeing was strong volume on the way out, have a bit of a breather, low volume on the consolidation there. Strong run up, then a little tight consolidation, doesn't sell it much, and away it goes there. So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for that impulsive. We're looking for it to move freely and easily higher. And then when it has a breather, we want to see it hold up nice and tight there. So, McLaren used to call this impulsive and then corrective overlapping. Impulsive, corrective overlapping. So we want to be basically, we want to be coming out of this corrective. So once they go into a corrective sideways move, one of two things occurs. It rolls off here, maybe, rebounds back and undercuts the, touches the bottom and then rolls off, or it breaks out, comes back, retests the break, and then goes again. That was sort of McLaren's, McLaren used to teach this all the time here. So that was just sort of the difference between impulsive and corrective. Just being able to identify those two principles in every stock there is just really important. STP, I was watching this one there actually, because this was sort of a bit of a cup and handle, and a bit of a BCP as well, Chris, as well. So, stocks had a pretty strong run here, had a bit of a pullback. It's gone back up to retest sides. It's a bit of a lower right handle. That's okay. That's sort of like there's the odds are still positive for their setup there. But yes, all it's done here, if you look at this, all it's done is come back and fill that gap, which I'm not a big gap filler sort of person, but has come back and just sat on top of that little previous high there and started to build here. And then, you're looking at this, once it's sort of come out of this consolidation there, that's looking sort of positive there. I think once you break through 171, this looks like it's sort of on its way again. So again, this looks pretty good. Interesting to sort of see whether it can get through the high here. But do have a nice little cover handle there. So pretty robust market here at the moment. MRL, just a small one there, a little too small for me, but possible little VCP, little handle here. It's probably a little bit messy, not my ideal setup there, but yeah, maybe just one to sort of keep an eye on there. That was the quarterly momentum there. So.
Yeah, well, noticing on the quarterly momentum, like step one, I think a couple of weeks ago, we had a fair few retail names in there, and you mentioned the VCP. I listed VCPs together of that whole retail space that we're doing it, interestingly, around the same time as property trusts. Now, looking at the launchpad, the top launchpad, that brings us back to property trusts and healthcare. For a while now, you've said, look, they've been the names that have been showing up and then a bit of momentum carrying through. When you're looking at the launchpad this week and you're looking from a themes perspective on the ASX, Is it a similar sort of thing? Are there any new themes coming up, or you're still seeing some of those names show up on the biotech, healthcare, property side of things? What's
Yeah,
coming out for you?
Yeah, the only sort of new theme that's sort of come back in there is the gold. I think one of the other things we've sort of got, I think defense was in there. A few defense stocks obviously are still hanging around. There's some sort of property and some healthcare names which have been sort of hanging around there. But I think the gold was the one that's probably hasn't been in there recently and has come up there. And it's pretty interesting there, the gold and yeah, because it's sort of been a real, if you look through the gold sort of stocks there, as much as the gold price has been, when spot gold has been ticking higher, the whole time here, the gold stocks are all over the place. You got Golden Star sort of had a pretty deep pullback there. It's sort of, it's nowhere near its highs here. It's just sort of going sideways there. I think Evolution has sort of had a pretty deep pullback. It's a little bit more robust there. I think, De Grey's has sort of, had come back a lot deeper. We saw RMS, which is probably one of the stronger names, just stayed pretty tight there. But it's, a real mixed bag throughout the whole different names there. But this RMS trade is pretty interesting there because, like the one thing I also I was looking at this sort of, so I do look at sort of false breaks there, but looking in the with what I was sort of talking about earlier about that false break, they're rather looking for false breaks down the bottom, looking for false breaks are sort of in the top half of the chart. So whether, probably the stronger names as well. So we're sort of seeing here, like Ramirez has been one of the stronger gold charts there. So look at our weekly chart, pretty robust there. But we can see here, much of this is pulled back here. I thought this is a pullback there because I actually bought this pullback in here. And I thought, well, this is like, it's come back a nice ABC. It actually got going here, but didn't follow through. Just, it's funny with gold, I found it personally a bit of a 50-50. Like it gives you good setups, but they fail half the time. Look, I guess, that's the way it works there. As long as you keep the risk there. This one was good for me because I sort of pulled back and got going. And I just moved myself to sort of break even, and then it failed and came down. But it came down on new high, new low. But it's just, all it's done is just undercut that low and gone there. This is the thing that I know with those sort of stronger names, we see this all the time, is that, and I wrote this sort of about 3 months ago when I look back at the last sort of, the last sort of rally there, we had a peak there, I think might have been, trying to think it was it, but I noticed the last leg of the market really, like a lot of things had a bit of a pullback, consolidation, and then they had a really expansive last leg, and a lot of the top stocks did a little undercut of that, so whether you call it a false break, I think Gil Morales calls it undercut. I know Matt Caruso calls it like this, this 3-day EMA break, and then there's like, White Copper over the Springs, but everyone's got a different name for it. But the one thing I was looking at this sort of video there, sort of was that they wait for the undercut there for the strongest names, like we've got here with RMS, and they look to basically sort of add on the third day. So basically they sort of get 1 day up, second day here, and then once they break the range of the second day, they usually add to it. So coming in a bit late here, like that was sort of really the setup. But I did notice on your list, I noticed that car sales came back, undercut the low again. So one very strong name, strong leader. This has gone sideways. So this is an impulsive rally here, gone sideways for a bit. Undercut the low here, this day here. 1, 2, basically, once you break the range on the third day, you're buying that. So literally, basically buy that on the open there, and you keep your stop down here, and then this is running. It's been a pretty good setup there. I think the other one was I think Next DC did sort of something similar. Again, another pretty strong name, been one of the leaders in the market. Undercut the low, 1, 2, and the third day adding here, and it's all done there. It's a really I think I have to again thank Justin for sending me that video there, but it was pretty interesting there. So I use a false break there. I've always been a bit of a day 2 guy, but the 3 MA is pretty interesting. It is interesting here that seeing these leaders there. I've often looked at sort of some of the I was looking at false breaks like this, come down and retest the low and trade these here. But I mean, trading the first day, but you get some good signals, no doubt. But you get a lot of failures up here, Chris, as well. So getting a lot more failures there. Whereas the strongest names here, undercutting the low and reversing there, you're staying in the, you're in this, you're running with the leaders. So
behind you.
Behind you. So, so they this don't really, once they reverse and and turn up here, I mean, that was a pretty good trigger there. That day there, some pretty solid volume there, XDC. I mean, I'm not sure I would have waited the third day, but yeah, it's interesting. Like a lot of
just on that NXT, I know before recording you were talking about this change and working in the top half and talking about false breaks, springs, 3MAs, many different names for very similar setup. But just on this chart here, NXT, you've got that spring in the October 23 lows, the false break. You've traded this setup many times. You've traded it for a lot of top 50, top 100 companies, and you've got some great trades out of it. But just before air, you were talking about, well, yes, you get great setups, and you've got in really, really low, a really, really good entry. But on reflection, do you just want to talk a little bit about how long you've been in the trade and how much of the trade you could have got if you'd maybe looked at it in a different way?
Yeah, so on reflection, you're you're getting a high failure rate. So basically, maybe only 30, 40% of those trades sort of work. Could even be less than that. The other thing too is that when you're sort of dealing down the bottom end, stocks often got to go through a building process. So I've entered a few of those stocks on false breaks down the lows, and I spent 3 months building a base going sideways before things started moving. So 3 months of building and then another 3 months of trending. I thought, well, if I just waited for that base to be built, VCP, whatever it is, and Min Event, he talks about it all the time, being in the market the least amount of time, the juiciest part of the trend here. So, if you're sitting in, your capital's tied up in the stocks that are building and not moving, and just sort of up and down going sideways, so your capital's not making money here. So we want to sort of try, that's the thing about BCP, whole thing tightens up and coils, and when it comes out, it explodes. And it's a short, sharp movement. That's the, so you're in so if it fails, you're knocked out in the first day. If it runs here, you can explode 3 or 4 days. You can sell half into heat, stop the other half and see how far it goes. Use a moving average, to see how the trade goes and the rest of it. So that's, you're catching the fast part of the move. So that's the problem with sort of, the problem with looking down the bottom half of the chart is it does so much work down here before it gets to the top half. And then once it's in the top half, yeah. And I can tell, I've done charts for 20 years, Chris. And if you look at indices, you look at the sort of history of them there, the last leg of a bull market is usually 50% of the whole 5 year. So we can be going up for, say, 5 or 7 or 4 years, where like a long period of time. The last leg up in the market it is often 50% of the whole 4 or 5 years of building, and that last leg there can be, how do you think of business? We spent so much time in the bottom half building the, it's you just see that so much there. So that's why it's important to be not caught in the trough there. Maybe you look at the top half there. Just looking at these strongest names too, that all their strongest names there, when they have a bit of a breather, a little bit of an undercut, mate, they're just coming out like this, coming out like next DC, they're coming out hard. Look at car sales as well. Man, that's just gone straight back here. Hey. So, so as soon as they go straight back to, they go to a new high there, and that's, you're talking about here, what's this, here's your false break here. So maybe you got set the next day, already at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days.
That's all you're invested, and you've going to let it profit target.
Like, what's this here? That's sort of 32.50 here, and you're out at a new high there. What, 37? So 15%, 7 days. There you go.
I find that's most interesting out of all that.
Yeah, but no, it's worth. I'll try and if Justin doesn't mind me sharing that video with people, I might sort of try and put a link to it there, because it's actually really, it's just really interesting. It's really quite good one to have a look at. What do we got there?
Springs and false breaks. But back to the list, the Launchpad leaders. So you got TRS, which is in that similar space to step one in that retail side of things. But this kind of, whether it's a VCP or contraction pattern, is happening in the bottom half of the chart. So has it done enough base formation for you, enough volume, change of character? Is there anything happened that would help make you feel comfortable with this kind of setup, or still not quite there?
Yeah, look, we're just sort of starting to see a little bit of a change in character. I guess that's probably the key there, is that it has sort of got, strong downtrend that definitely seen the volumes elevated down here. So you got sort of signs of possible accumulation occurring. And then we've had the one little surge there, comes back here, goes back up to the tightens up here. So it doesn't actually break to a new high. There's still haven't even made a new high yet. And then now we have sort of broken out here. So this is probably the first time here we've actually broke to a new high. So I don't know if I'm going to get long term. It's not awesome sort of signal like coming off the base here. But if you were going to sort of buy this is probably the first, the first time here is breaking above that little B wave. And that you do have the volume here. That's the one thing that probably does catch my eye quite a bit. We are now above the 50, and we've got a couple of high lows in place as well. I mean, this be nice if this sort of surged up here, then maybe came back, sat on top of the previous high, a little bit of a consolidation built there. So, but you do, I guess the biggest takeaway there is that you do have a bit of a change in character for the stock here. I mean, this is a pretty nasty downtrend, and now we're sort of starting to get a couple of high lows to it, so starting to build it. So that can go on our radar just for that sort of reason there. MRL is just a sort of small one there, just a little bit of a tight pattern there, a little bit of a VCP, maybe cup and handle, but a bit thin, too small for me personally. What do we got there? AW1. Get another sort of small one there, big sort of sideways consolidation there. Look, oftentimes these are ones that sort of, they can sort of break out of this here, but you probably want to see a bit more volume there, and you really want to be breaking above this, probably 17 cents here before you look at this. But again, pretty too small for me personally, but it could be a potential consolidation there. ARR I think is pretty interesting here, because it's one of those stocks that had that explosive jump there, Chris, more than 100% move, big volume in there. Has come back a bit deeper than you'd like. You'd like to sort of see them stay in the sort of top quarter or top third here. Has pulled back here, but good thing is now is actually, this was volatile early, which is, Kalamagi sort of says to, looses for losers and tighters for winners. But now it actually is starting to tighten up. So it was loose originally. Next one's a bit tighter. Now it's getting tighter again. So you do have this VCP sort of setting up here. And we do know that sometimes that can be 3, 5, 9 months sort of consolidation before we get another leak here. So definitely want to be keeping an eye on there, just because it did have that explosive move here. And now the whole thing's tightened up here. So I think it's sort of in that rare earth space there. So it's probably, that sector is under the pump at the moment. So it's a negative sector. So that's the negative for the stock there. But maybe this goes sideways for another month or two, Chris, and then maybe the sector gets a bit more positive. Maybe it'll show relative strength versus the sector, and then maybe you can do something later on. But this goes on the radar there. BSL, just a bit of a change of character here. Obviously, we've had a pretty strong downtrend there. Whole thing did sort of tighten up here. Did sort of break above the 50. Has broken above a little bit of a swing high here. So possible change in character. So it probably just goes on the radar for me there. See whether it can build from there. Talked about Remelius, talked about car sales. Sort of Bot was back on the list there. This is sort of a name that a lot of people are pretty keen on there. Looked a bit vulnerable there. Didn't do the undercut, Chris. It sort of came down. Did like a little bit. Yeah, it did a double bottom there. So I think 30.5, now 30.5 there. So just sort of, literally just came back and sat on top of that. Oh, so it's still leaves it in a pretty strong position, really. Hasn't broken a swing low here. Did cut the 50, which is probably, a little negative, but now we're recovered there. See how this goes under the high there. Probably a slightly bigger correction in there, but still pretty robust there. Still a lot of people like that stock here. So, FID. This is an interesting one here. Obviously, the game has had that pretty impulsive rally there, pretty strong through there. There's some reasonably good, some reasonably sort of good volume bars through here, and the whole thing's sort of gone through a bit of a contraction there. Didn't give you much of a signal here because it's sort of the whole thing tightened up, and then your little B wave break here is coming on a gap there. But you could have bought that. That's obviously a bit of a game changer there. Good news. You could have bought the gap there. You give yourself a little stop there. But yeah, that's not a bad sell. That's again, this is impulsive. This is corrected there, going sort of sideways there. I think sort of something like reminds me a little bit of High Pages. High Pages has had a nice little move here. I did look at this. I really like to look at this, but geez, it's thin.
Out of trade.
So I've seen so many stocks this year that I really like. The charts look fantastic, but there's only like 5,000 or 10,000 shares on the bid and offer. It's like, I can't get in or out of that. That's going to be but I think this looks pretty good. Pretty good setup there. I know they did a lot of advertising over Origin. That's a pretty good volume there. Gone sideways here for a while here, so not the worst looking chart there. So interesting, but it's been a pretty good week for me personally. Good to sort of get the mindset. I mean, I say, but even though my trading was pretty much, I think my first my first trading was up about 3 years ago. I think I might have tweaked it maybe once or twice in the first 18 months, not much. Last year I sort of tweaked them a lot. I was probably pushing a bit hard. But I've just tweaked them again a little bit here, and I just feel like I've actually just kind of redefined. I've kind of get to that point, Chris, where trying to take all the emotionality out of it, just be totally process orientated, so that every sort of step, is laid out there. So you sort of know what you're trying to achieve, how you're going to do it. It's got to meet got to meet a certain standard before you take the trade. Certain actions you're trying to build that trade into it. If it wins, it's up there, man. This is the thing about the trades there. If you are building in those positions there, you're not going to build it unless it's going the right direction. I was quite happy with the way, it's funny that LTP, that really threw me. Because I got, after looking at that, I was looking at that last week and thinking, my God, this could be the sort of trade there, because that, like Viagra is like a $30 billion market when it first came out. So there's been 3 other drugs since then that have been better than Viagra, and they've been big markets. You don't really hear about those, but going from the tablet to just a spray there, and now sort of like these guys are saying sign main pharma and just signed another US pharma who specialize in nasal sprays as well. So it's a pretty interesting company. But when I looked at it last week before this news, I thought, this is sort of product with a big market cap, big scalability, pretty simple process. It's a repurposed drug, so it's not going to be complex to, it's already a safe drug, and there's actually already they're trying to get the TGA and FDA approval, but they can sell the product now because it's already an approved drug. So you just have to pay full price for it. But if it gets TGA approved, it gets FDA approved, then all of a sudden people are going to the chemist or the doctor, and they're only paying $5 or $6 for the prescription. So that therefore can go a bit more appeal there. So
mainstream.
Yeah. So look, things can go wrong. I mean, look, other drug companies could, the other 3 or 4 drugs that are out there, they could all basically say, why don't we do nasal spray? We'll go and do the same thing as well. But the FDA and TGA are all sort of company specific approvals. So each company has to do it. So like a lot of them don't want to do it because there's a lot of money involved. So it's pretty costly process. But if you're the first to market there, get a nasal spray in that area, geez, it could be. Yeah, so it's one of those ones that does get FDA approval, could be, but look, I think the stock's going to be up and down a bit there. If you get a rubbish the stock, a while ago, I saw some guys sort of canning it, sort of saying no good. So like, get aware of that. But I thought when Drain Shield came out, I thought, oh, interesting. I'm just not sure there's a big enough market for it. Whereas this one here, I thought, there's a pretty big market for this one. But yeah, maybe the company's not as good as Drain Shield. But Drain Shield had a pretty good product there, pretty high end sort of premium sort of thing. So so you never really know. But it's all about managing the risk there. But I think we're sort of seeing there when we go back over those stronger stocks that are performed this year, they've all had that really strong burst, had the breather, and then gone again. And I looked at FND because that sort of had the big burst like this, and then it had a breather, and then it had another burst in there. And I thought, okay, well, this is gonna run here. See how this ran here, then it had a bit of a breather, had a bit of a breather, had a bit of a breather. So this is sort of what you want to see. So okay, you want to be nice just to sort of hug the 20. You stay with the 20 there, maybe you get a good run. So I'm just going to try and replicate some of the big moves in the past. This was probably one of the stocks of my sort of 40 VCPs that I've got in my library. This is one that looked pretty similar. So I thought, okay, I'm going to model off this one, another one, and then, So anytime it has a little bit of a breather there, I'll wait for a little B wave. I might even add in, if I saw it do this, I'd break that, maybe buy that break here. There's a little congestion here again, and maybe buy that break as well. You could build potentially over time. So I'm not going to be buying any more here until this thing has a breather, congests, and tries to, but it could pull back, knock me out, break the 20 EMA. So all we got to do is just got to have our process, our rules, just sort of follow them. And so I think the beauty is once you have your process and rules down pat, takes the emotionality out of it, and that's probably the hard part is us, because we sort of keep, I get drawn to the bottom, of charts occasionally, looking down the bottom stuff, seeing stuff getting hiding. I think, oh, that could really, that's a good company getting sold off here. You might have a decent bounce, but the reality is those things they always go lower than you think. It's like the rallies always go further than you think. So let's just wait for stocks to set up, build a base, go again. Let's just try and stick with the winners here. That one thing we've learned here in the last 3 years with these looking at the relative strength and looking at the leaders, they all seem to stay there a lot longer than anyone thinks. Even we see them week after week after week just staying in there. It's just amazing. So we've got to try and stick with the leaders, stay with the strong. Where we see a whole sector turn positive, we go, that's the one that really, that's where we can get a bit more aggressive with our positioning size and stuff. That when we see a whole sector light up, and you talk about property trusts. That was we talked about that 3 weeks ago. DXS, there's a little VCP in there. So it had a bit of explosive move, big volume, pulled back, tightened up. Little pullback in here again, little VCP. What's this done? It's popped out, moved higher here. I think CHC. This is another little VCP in here, popped out here. I mean, they're all. I think always property trusts have been popping out.
There's about almost a dozen of them that kind of that VCP setup around the same time.
And they all had a really explosive first legs. This is the thing, people think, oh, that's already rallied, it's had a big leg up. I'll consolidate back. They do the little VCPs. They all tighten up, and then away they go. So when you see a sector on the launch pad, like 4 or 5 names or 6 or 8 names of this, look at that very seriously, because that's telling you the sector is catching a light, and everyone's position. And normally that means, Chris, that institutions are positioning in that area. Taking some weight there, and then just wait for them to coil and tighten up. Wait for entry. It's worth the gold.
What's funny with that is that I'm looking back on the dates, and we were discussing it on the 12th of July about the property sector lighting up on the launch pad. And I know around the same time I did a top 6 video of these are the top 6 property trusts that are setting up on the launch pad, and here are their patterns, and here's what's happening. And it just falls on deaf ears. The market's not ready to actually trade them. They want to know what's on the momentum list. But when we're going through and surfacing, we're talking about it, but they're the next leaders. So here we are a month later, and we're saying, well, property trusts have done really well, performed really well.
Yeah.
It's it's a month after they were highlighted, we were talking about it. So I guess that's the the reason why we go to your insights and see, okay, well, what's coming out of the list and what are you finding interesting? So,
Yeah. Well, we should, I mean, look, if the 3-time winner of the US Investing Championships was buying property trusts a couple of weeks ago, which we should have been listening. So, yeah.
I think he's got a bit of credit to his name about being able to pick a few stocks and sectors.
Definitely.
Well, so Gary's talked about springs and setups. We'll put a video on screen of the false breaks, the springs, very similar setups, talking about how Wyckoff looks at it. And we say thank you, Gary Glover from Novus Capital.
Thanks, Chris.